Hello, I am Iyasu, your tutor for Lesson 1. In this voice thread, ethical considerations in clinical trials and informed consent will briefly be discussed. Just to give you an outline of this presentation, first, the two fundamental rules in clinical trial will briefly be mentioned, followed with a discussion on ethical principles and ethical considerations in clinical trial. Then, the roles and types of informed consent, together with its process, will be discussed. This would be followed with assent and discussion on waiver and renewal of informed consent. With regard to the fundamental rules in clinical trial, it emphasizes on responsibilities, not rights. That's to say, the first concern of clinical trials should be how to take responsibilities and discharge them. Second one is not to assign a responsibility to the party who cannot fulfill it. For instance, only investigator may remove study participants from a clinical trial. If this responsibility is given to the sponsor will not be able to, to accomplish this task because sponsor might be far from the clinical trial site. The three ethical principles, sometimes four, when we split beneficence and non-maleficence into two, could be applied in clinical trials. Let's see how these principles could be applied in clinical trials. The first principle, respect for person, is applied through informed consent. The second one, beneficence, is applied through ensuring benefits of clinical trial. The third, non-maleficence, is applied through minimizing risks. And the fourth, justice, might be seen from three levels. First, pre-clinical trial level. We have to make fair selection of participants by setting fair and scientific criteria. During trial, we need to share the burdens and benefits of the trial equally to all participants, irrespective of where they are, who they are. Post-trial level. If the trial comes up with developing a new product, this product has to be made available, if possible, at no cost. If not, at least at low cost in the site where the trial has been conducted. Let's then have a look on what we need to consider ethically while conducting clinical trial. The first ethical consideration which we have to make is a clinical trial should have social value, i.e., it should improve the health and well-being of the society at large, or it should have scientific value, that is, it should add knowledge. The second ethical consideration is Clinical trial should have scientific validity, i.e., it should follow rigorous methodology, provide reliable and valid data. It should also have adverse event reporting system and has to be monitored by Data Safety Monitoring Board, and it should provide accurate knowledge. Clinical trial should consider scientific objectives to select participants to be involved in the study. Clinical trial should also give respect for participants. One has to disclose information and get consent prior to involving the participants. We need to respect the decision of the participant no matter what that decision is. We have to permit refusal or withdrawal of participants from the clinical trial. We have to respect privacy of the participant. We should not force the participant to share the information with us if he or she is not willing to. We need to protect confidentiality of all information provided by the participant as well as the data generated through the clinical trial. We have to promote participants' welfare and we need to inform participants the research outcomes and say thank you. A clinical trial should have a favorable risk benefit ratio. This ratio should be considered not only for participants but also for society at large. In order to estimate the risk benefit ratio, we have to identify the risks and benefits first, followed with assessing them. We need to enhance benefits, not the one obtained from payment, but from the research itself. If the potential benefits outweigh risk to participants, we can proceed with the conduct of the trial. If the potential risks outweigh benefits to participants, but it's useful for society and all science. We have to look for a mechanism by which we can minimize risk. If it's not possible to minimize risk, however, we should stop it. Every clinical trial has to be reviewed by an independent ethics committee. If it involves product, one has to get authorization from a regulatory authority as well. Please attempt this multiple choice question by selecting the best answer and writing the corresponding letter by responding in the text. Let's have a look briefly on informed consent in the subsequent slides. Informed consent is a process, it's not a one time act. It acknowledges one of the fundamental principles of ethics: respect for person. It's not a risk management tool for an investigator. If the investigator considers informed consent to be a risk management tool, it means the investigator has not understood what informed consent is meant for. The roles of informed consent include respect participants' rights and establish participatory research. One might think informed consent is useful only for prospective participants, but this is not true. It's also useful for the research itself, to make it participatory. One of the reasons why participants withdraw from the study could be due to lack of proper informed consent process. Informed consent could be either written or verbal. By written informed consent, we mean it bears signatures of the principal investigator and the prospective participant. In some cases where the participant cannot read or write, signature of a witness might be needed. This type of informed consent is mandatory for all clinical research, and this type of informed consent is highly recommended for all health research involving human participants. Verbal informed consent, on the other hand, does not bear any signature. This type of informed consent is not recommended unless strongly justified. We say informed consent is a process. Let's have a look then the various processes involved in informed consent. First, we need to assess the competency of prospective participants. By this we mean we need to assess the ability to comprehend information, to understand consequences of decisions, and to communicate decisions. We say one is competent if he or she can comprehend information given and understands the consequence of the decision which he or she made, and is able to communicate the decisions which he or she has already made. After assessing the prospective participant's competency, if he or she is competent, fully autonomous, we can provide relevant information. The core elements of information include selection criteria through which the participant will be selected, the relevant procedures which help participants decide to participate or not. Such procedures could include the duration of participation, the type and the amount of tissues to be taken from him or her, the standard of care which the participant could get while the trial is being conducted. The risk or discomfort the trial can pose to the participant, the expected benefits the trial can bring about, how to protect confidentiality of the information provided by the participant and the data generated from the study. Assuring the privacy of the participant is respected, providing contact addresses of the principal investigator and the chair or secretary of the ethics committee and signature of the PI as well as the participants. In some cases, if applicable, the signature of the witness could also be included. After providing the relevant information to the prospective participants, we need to make sure whether the participant has understood the information given. To make the information understandable, the information has to be simple and communicated in a clear language, preferably in one's mother tongue. The sentences have to be short without any technical jargons. The culture has to be considered as well. We make sure the participant is not in a state of fear while administering the informed consent. We need to consider illness while administering informed consent, as illness could distract one's attention and compromise understanding the information. The level of education of participant has to be considered while administering the informed consent. We need to use the most appropriate language which helps participants understand the information. After making sure that the participants have understood the information given, we need to tell them that participation is voluntary. We have to tell them that participants have the right to participate or not. We have also to inform them that they can withdraw at any time, even after getting involved. We have to tell them they have the right to refuse to answer any question which they are not comfortable with. For voluntary participation, we have to avoid wording that suggests coercion or undue inducement. We have to avoid claims of safety or efficacy which could distract their decision. The participants can now then make decision whether to participate or not. We have to be very careful. The decision has to be arrived without being subject to coercion or undue inducement. Informed consent can be administered by the investigator himself or herself, or in cases where the investigators cannot make it because of either large size or other reasons, employees who have been trained and well versed with the protocol could also administer the informed consent process. Informed consent process has to be administered before the research is commenced. And if there are new objectives or procedures introduced which may affect participants' voluntary participation. Informed consent process has to be administered using participants' language. It's preferable if it is done in the form of discussion and or visual aids. Once the information is given, it's good to check whether the participant has understood the information given. We need to give the participants adequate time prior seeking consent. While getting consent, we have to make sure this is obtained free of coercion and or undue inducement. The informed consent could be either written or verbally. It could be self or proxy. Informed consent may be obtained from study participants, from the spouse of the participants, if applicable, from the community if the study is done in the community in which the community could be either beneficiary or risk takers. It could also be obtained from the government if the study has a very sensitive issue which might affect the sovereignty of a given nation. The process of informed consent should be administered in a quiet and comfortable area in order to avoid any distraction. And it has to be administered as well in a private setting to respect privacy of the participants. Assent is an agreement of minors to participate in study. For clinical research which involves minors, it requires assent if the child is in an assenting age. In addition to the proxy consent obtained from parents or legal guardians. Assent does not guarantee, however, participation in the study unless proxy consent is obtained. If the child dissents, there is no need to seek consent from parents or guardians. He or she will not be involved in the study. Ascending age varies with countries. Informed consent has to be obtained from study participants as much as possible. For informed consent is a reflection of respect for person. However, in certain circumstances, waiver of consent may be granted if the study does not pose more than minimal risk, if it is impractical to get consent, and if signing consent is a threat to participants' confidentiality, as in the case of study on substance abuse, in which the act is illegal. Clinical trial, which have long-term duration, require consent renewal as ethics committee gives approval only for a year in most cases. Consent renewal might also be needed when there are significant changes that affect participant consent given earlier. Please attempt this multiple choice question by selecting the best answer and writing the corresponding letter by responding in the text. Thank you.